And now, fresh off a 30-year break from his life in over-the-air radio, here's the host of the most originally named 15 Years Too Late podcast, JaySapChats.
All right, Rowena Scherer joins me on JaySapChats. Rowena, it's great to see you.
Great to see you, Jay.
All right. Well, so you're a atypical entrepreneur. Is that fair to say?
Not really. This is my first rodeo. I've never been an entrepreneur before, but
No, that's
yeah.
what atypical.
Oh,
Not
atypical.
not a
Yes,
typical
I am.
entrepreneur.
True. I am atypical. Yes.
Yeah, awesome. So here's what we'll do. So you're the CEO and founder of Eat2Explore. It's this incredible experiential at-home, mail service where you basically try to connect generations through international experiences cooking together, right?
Yep. Exactly.
So we'll get into the product. We'll get into how you came up with it and how you started. But honestly, in this conversation, what I'm more interested in is you. Because as I said, you're atypical, right? You didn't start your business and, it's not been a straight line for you. You've been in multiple careers. You're international. So yeah, I'd love to start, like, where are you from?
So I was born in this small town in Malaysia called Muar. It's a fishing village. I think there was one major kind of a factory, but other than that, it's like a lot of small business. And I think I was, my family, especially on my mother's side, were all entrepreneurs. They were grocery owner and of so forth. So I came from this small town, and I have two other siblings. And when I was young, I always wanted to leave my town. So that was like, I always think about different ways of how I can escape, either be an air hostess or so on and so forth. But I finally discovered that, I can actually use education to get a scholarship to go abroad, which is what I did.
Define small town for me.
There's 6 major streets in town, and then you bike pretty much everybody have cars, and I guess I was like middle class, but we know everybody. Like, it's a small town where, you walk down the street, you meet somebody who knows my family, and that's I guess how small it is, right?
Were you near bigger cities, or like, was it a
I
suburb or
guess
was it remote?
no, it's pretty close. I think Singapore, it's probably 2 hours away.
Okay.
So that's a big city.
All right.
And then the capital, Malaysia, is 3 hours away. So
Okay. So
yeah,
how are you, the oldest, middle, youngest?
I'm
Where do
right
you
in the
fit?
middle. I
Okay.
have an older sister and I have a younger sister. And I was the first in my immediate family, actually my full family, including my cousins, who went to college. So I was kind of the first who went to college.
What was the school
And
like in your town? Was it K through 12, or was
yeah,
it one?
it's also, well, it's a British system. So
Yeah.
Malaysia, it's a bit of history, which I love. Malaysia was occupied by the Portuguese, the Dutch, and English. Were one of the British colonies. And when Britain occupied Malaysia, that's when they brought in the laborer from Chinese and India. So it's predominantly 3 race, I would say, the locals, who's Malay, Chinese, and Indian. And that's how the food is too. So it's very much a blend of all 3 culture. When Malaysia gained its independence. So before that, everything was in English because of the British colonies, education, British education. So we were very similar to the O level and A level. And then when Malaysia gained its independence in the 60s, we switched everything to Malay. So I grew up, my education was everything in Malay, which is the local language. So physics, biology, like math, everything was in Malay, and English was the second language. Um, and so they're like, I would say, two primary school and then two secondary schools when I grew up. So then I left in I would say A level. So and went to New Zealand.
What'd your parents do
And
for work?
my mother worked my dad used to be a math teacher until they changed it from English to Malay. And my dad is like, no, I'm not going to learn Malay. And then give up being a teacher.
Your dad didn't know
So,
the language. Your dad
no,
only knew it. Your
my
dad knew
dad
it.
is a very stubborn man. And he's like, refused to learn and adapt. And so he's like, I'm not going to learn the language. I don't want to learn how to speak, how to teach. And so that's it. And so for the rest of his life, he knows a few words, but he has no interest in learning Malay.
So what did he do
Which
after he
you don't
stopped?
need to.
But what
You
did he
don't
do
need to.
after he stopped? So he was a teacher, right?
Yeah.
Educated man, teacher. Didn't choose to learn the language. They switched over the system of education. What did he
Yes.
do? What did he do for work after that?
So, many different things, including one thing about my dad, he loves gambling. And so he became a booker. He tried to run a video business, and I was the video assistant in like giving out, renting, and renting video, like videotapes, movies
Yeah,
in the olden days, before there was blockbusters.
yeah,
Uh,
VHS.
exactly. So he did that for a while. He was a booker for a while.
So like,
Just
what
kind
do
of
you what do you
knickknacks.
bet on in Malaysia? Like when he's a bookie, what do people bet on it?
Soccer. So
Got
it's
it.
a big, yeah, football. We call it football.
Okay. And then your mom, did she work
Yeah, my
outside the home?
mom works as a bank teller. So she has always been working in a bank as a bank teller forever. So she's a working mom. My mom is great. My mom supports the whole family.
So
Like
what
the
are the,
only one with a stable job.
interesting. So uh, but your dad's an educated man. I mean, education was important to your family. Is that sort
Yes,
of the
yes,
thread that
yes, yes. Always been. Education is very important to my family. I think it's always been. I mean, in the olden days, you don't really need to go to college, right? You just have like a education, and he speaks well. He knows English very well. He's love math, and so yeah, that's kind of how we grew up. But I don't think, going to college is a thing then. And so he's been a teacher, and then he stopped being a teacher when I was like maybe four.
oh
And then
wow.
really, yeah. So
And it really was.
never really knew him as an educator.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You knew him as
But
a
he
guy who
was
did odd jobs.
all jobs, all kind of jobs, and on and off. And he could be like a very giving man. Like when he hit it big, he spent it all. He's friends to everybody. He gives money away, and yeah.
Was there
So
ever any danger? I mean, being a bookie's not the most safe job ever.
it's a small town. No one's gonna. It's not like crazy gangster town. So it's all right.
Got it.
I just
Okay.
never really feel in danger. It's like a small town where everybody know each other. So um,
I gotta tell you, I've known you for a little bit. I never knew that I would never have thought that your father was a bookie. Like, I mean, like my dad was a gambler too. I don't know if you know
yeah,
that, but
yeah, we talked
I
about it.
I grew up going to the racetrack. I mean, my dad would
Yeah.
drag me along, the harness races, and that
Oh,
was
I
sort of
love
this.
going to
Yeah,
exactly. I used to
but
go and watch football with my dad and like, pick up the phone and like write down all the orders of what the bats are, and I'm like the assistant of everything.
unbelievable. Unbelievable. I had no idea that was part of your
I
history. So that's
know, and
so
so
funny.
money comes and goes, and you know how it is, right? In this kind of family, right?
Yeah.
It's like you just never know, and so yeah, I got a scholarship and left.
So you
And
got a scholarship to college. Where do you go to school?
so first, because I never learned English, I had to spend 1 year, sort of like high school in New Zealand to learn English, just adapt to, which is
Mhm.
actually really good. And so it's like a one pre-college year, and then 4 years in New Zealand. So I was in Auckland for a year, and then Victoria, New Zealand, which is the capital, in Wellington, for
And are you
college.
fully on scholarship when you're in New Zealand for your education?
Yeah, so all the fees are paid. So I still have to like get like, um I think I work like all kinds of jobs. I just didn't like expenses, right? You're like
Yeah.
accommodation, you're there. So I work on um my very first job was in Wendy's,
Hmm.
scrubbing potatoes.
Yeah.
And then I worked 3 housekeeping jobs, and then I work in the post office. I work at restaurants every year, so you get by.
Yeah. I mean, that's the way you do it, right? I mean, you have to figure it out. So you get by and
My
you gra-
education was paid. My college tuition was paid for.
right. So you get your education, right? And do you know what you want to do at this point? Have you sort of started to think about like what your career path is going to look like?
Yeah. So when I was young, I love buildings. I always loved like drawing and art, and I actually thought of being an architect. And then my mom sat me down. It's like, look, you need to make money, and architect doesn't pay, and artist doesn't pay, and I think you should study finance, and which is what I did. He's like, study accounting and finance, and then get a job, and then you can figure out what you do.
Now, just out of
So
curiosity, then, like
yeah.
your older sister, where's she and what's she doing at this point? Like you're getting an
S-
education in New Zealand.
right.
What's she doing? Because a lot of times I find like families are like interplaying off each other and they're seeing what the
Yes,
others are
yes,
doing.
yes, yes, yes. So my sister is a piano teacher.
Okay.
So music is a big thing. I grew up playing piano, and then my sister became a teacher, I guess. So it's very stable, pays the bill.
And she's
So
living at home with your parent, not at home, but she's
she's
in,
not at home. She lives in Malaysia. So she
she,
lives very close to home. She's
okay.
like she sees my mom every weekend. She's there, which is,
Okay. So
I
she,
mean, I
your
have to
older,
say,
that's your older sister who
my
was,
older sister.
she was like the at home. And then
Right.
is your younger sister much younger?
My younger sister is 7 years younger than me. She went to Melbourne, Australia for college. And she's now living in Singapore, which is close by.
But at that
So she's
point,
also very successful.
oh, okay. So she took the
Yeah.
business route as well.
No, she didn't become an entrepreneur. She actually works as an event planner, and then now basically
Okay.
represent Fuji, like the head of Fuji in Singapore.
Got it. So,
Yeah.
okay, so you're in New Zealand and you
Yes.
decide that you're in the finance route because your mom
My
focuses
mom,
you in on
remember,
that.
is in banking, so it's been a teller.
Yeah,
Being bank, working in a bank, it pays and it's stable job. So my
yeah.
mom is like, study accounting, go into finance, and that's kind of like where I ended up.
So where's your first job?
So because I came out of accounting, my very first job was with Deloitte as an auditor,
Uh-huh.
and I somehow got my way into banking auditing. So I did Merrill as my first, job, doing auditing for Deloitte. And I applied to JP Morgan in my first year in Singapore. And it turns out my very first boss at JP Morgan went to my same college, and so in New Zealand. So that's how I got the job.
So you're in Singapore now.
Yes. So
And
I left
Singapore,
New Zealand. I went to Singapore.
right? And then Singapore is just like it's crazy, right?
Singapore's
Like,
booming, right? Yeah. Another funny, interesting story. My allergy is terrible right now, so I'm sorry.
that's okay.
Um, Singapore used to be part of Malaysia.
Mhm.
And then shortly after Malaysia got its independence, Singapore, under Lee Kuan Yew, who's like the head and was the prime minister for a very long time, basically say to Malaysia, it's like, look, we don't want to convert into the Malay language. We won our independence, and it managed to get its independence. And you see how it is. Singapore is so, I mean, literally, if you go to Singapore and then you drove across, it's like a totally different country. It's Singapore is very much more developed, and you see a lot of Malaysia ended up working in Singapore. So when I graduated, I'm like, where do I want to go? I don't want to go back to Malaysia. Closest thing to me was Singapore, and it was very developed.
So you end up staying in Singapore till right around the year 2000, right? And
No, I left Singapore in 90. I got a job in JP Morgan. So I
Mhm.
started working 2092. Yeah, 93. Yeah, 93. Then JP Morgan, I joined JP Morgan, and then they sent me to New York for 6 months training. So
Okay.
at that point, this is like old Morgan, 60 Wall Street. They still give you free dinner, free lunch. Um,
Well, free dinner,
uh,
free lunch, but they work you till 10:30 at night every day.
yeah,
So,
and I take a car service back.
and
Yeah,
you take a car.
exactly.
Somebody, let's not make it like they're like heroes there. I
I
mean,
know,
like,
but it's a perk.
they don't
It's a
want you to
perk.
leave. It's a
It's
perk
a
because they don't want.
perk.
It's a perk because they don't want you to leave your desk.
It's true. It's true. So I was in the training program. So every like all banks, even now, you have a 3-year analyst program. So they
Mhm.
kind of like work you like a dog, but you got a work ethic out of it, and they take care of you in terms of pay, and I have like free housing because I came here as in so-called expats because I was sent from Singapore.
Mhm.
So it looks good. I mean, I came here, I was like 23, 24,
Oh wow.
living in New York City for
Yeah.
6 months, right? It's crazy.
Yeah.
Coming from a small town on scholarship. I mean, I still remember my kids, even now, they're like, Mom, what you do in college? I'm like, what's your social life? I'm like, what's social life? I'm like working 4 jobs.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. Yeah. Your college
Yeah,
experience was you were paying your own
so
bills aside from
different.
school. Yeah.
Yes.
So you're 23, but you go back to Singapore and work.
I did. I was here for 6 months, but then I have to go back. So that's the agreement. Except in that 6 months, I met my husband. So I met my husband my third month here. So I have 3 months, and we became very serious. And so I went back, and next thing I know, I said, would you send me back to New York? Because I met my other half. And JP Morgan sent me back here. So I came back to New York in like 6 months later.
Oh, okay. Wow. So
Yeah.
you were
So
back
then
in New York almost like in 94, 95.
yeah. I was in New York 94, 95.
Okay.
Um, and then in 97, yeah, 97, we went back to Hong Kong. So my husband then got a relocation to Hong Kong, and then I asked to transfer with JP Morgan, I literally travel everywhere. I think I always say my life sort of like started, like it's so different before and after. And like since I've been with JP Morgan, I set up their South Korea office. I was there, like I said, and I can't remember if I mentioned to you, I was there when South Korea was almost bankrupt.
Uh,
It was like in 97, 98,
I
Asia
remember.
crisis.
Yeah.
They were bankrupt.
Yeah.
They have like they are borrowing so much money from IFC. No, it's not IFC. IMF. It was IMF. In International Monetary Finance. And then at one point, I was talking to some Korean friends. All the old Korean family, like literally take their jewelries and donate it to the government, like just helping whatever they can for the government to survive. And look at it 30 years later. It's insane. It's like a totally different world. Super impressive. Um, so I set up JP Morgan South Korea. I was in the team, not me, because I specialize in derivatives and trying to figure out how we can trade that product in then a restricted currency of South Korean. And then we also set up India at Mumbai, and Malaysia,
But
and then
you're
I
in
work in
but
Sydney.
here's the overall point. You're in high finance.
Yes.
You're in like you're in the best offices in the world. You're eating at the best restaurants. You're traveling business class, if not first class, when you go internationally on JP's dime. You're like living a very corporate life. You're not signing the bottom right portion of a paycheck. Like,
That's true.
not even thinking about it, right? Like when you're in high finance, you're not thinking about making
No,
payroll. You're thinking about the job that
right,
you do every day, right? I mean,
right,
you're not even
right.
close to thinking
No,
about
I
being a.
don't, I agree.
And so, okay, so just timeline wise, you're at JP Morgan a long time. You're like 13 years. And any kids while you were there? When did the kids start?
So yeah, then I came back. So after Asia, we came back, and my husband and I were like, okay, where would we be more successful? And we always said, actually, this is a good couples therapy, right? Because look, both of us, we are both in finance. We travel around the world. At some point, we need to figure out the future. Right?
Mhm.
Where's our route going to be? And we have seen expats in Asia where it's no longer the heyday of expats, right? And we need to like figure out, is it going to be, all right, do we want to stay in Asia? Do we want to go back to New York? Where as an American, Josh will have a better opportunity and better future. And which is when we decided, and we at this point have no kids. We travel everywhere. We have no kids. So then we always do a spreadsheet of like pros, cons of everything. And every way lead back to New York.
I couldn't
Because not only
imagine doing a spreadsheet with. I couldn't imagine doing a spreadsheet with my wife on the pros and cons of anything.
we do spreadsheet on everything, including like, do we want a second kid? We always do a spreadsheet
You
because
did a
you know
spreadsheet.
what?
Hold on. You did a spreadsheet on whether or not you should have another child.
Okay, like ranking. It's like this. Where do you rank it? And then count the numbers because it does matter because it gives you a very objective view of making a decision.
Okay. Yeah. Well, my wife took a different tack. She decided how many kids we were going to have,
No,
and
we actually sat down.
and
We
then
went through
behaved accordingly to fulfill the wishes that she had. Just, I'll let you figure all that out. But
I know who runs the show.
yeah, of course she runs the show. What? Who doesn't know who runs the show? Of course. All right, but that's awesome. I mean, but listen, I mean, I guess that appeals to like who you are as a person, right? Analytical, right? Very numbers oriented, data driven. Like these are all things that as entrepreneurs, like we have to figure out who we
Right,
are, and it
right.
helps shape us as
Yep.
in our journey. So
Even now, I think data tells everything. It takes the emotions out of it
yeah,
and it tells you a story that is very logical,
for
you
sure.
know?
So you
Yeah.
move back to New York. You move back to
Go
New
back to New
York.
York in
Yep.
99. We moved back to New York in 99.
So fast
And
forward,
then,
your time frame with JP goes. You're at the end of the JP Morgan years.
no, I still at JP. And then
Not
I
in
was,
'98, but
no, I
later.
was. Oh, yeah, yeah. I was with JP Morgan all the way to my second child.
Right. And then you leave.
And I left because it's kind of sad too. It's two things, right? I have like a big boss who said, well, all the women who like after second child they never want to stay. And
You had a
and
boss
because of
tell you that?
the big boss, yeah. It's like,
Said
yeah,
that to you?
yeah, indirectly. He's like, it's only your days are numbered.
It's so funny. That's such a different experience. When I was early in my entrepreneurial career, um, I was selling for a private jet company. And whenever somebody would add a car, a second house, or have a child, uh, the chairman of the company, he would love it. He's like, he would love, like, so you having a second child would be in his mind. He always thought the more liabilities that people have, the better, because it makes them more motivated to work harder versus less motivated to work. It's just, it's amazing the difference in mentality
Yeah. No, I
between
agree.
an
I agree.
entrepreneurial effort and
I hired someone like the baby was born like literally have a playpen in my office, right?
yeah.
This is how, and I'm always very supportive. When you want to take time for your kids, you should do it, as long as you get the work done. I don't care, right?
Oh yeah, for
Whereas
sure. My number two
in
is a
corporate world is very
working
different, right?
mother.
They need to be there. You need
Yeah.
to wake up early. You need to be committed. You need to fly. You need to do this, and there's so many people I know who just left. It's just like and it's not like, okay, does the money really makes a difference, right? Do you really need the money to like to suffer like this and your family effect, you know? And I sort of like want to continue working. So what I ended up doing is I ended up being working for. When I left Morgan, I was in the private bank. So, like we have a lot of like I was in the hedge fund private equity world, so I ended up taking on a few of the funds and represent them in like placement, investor relations, which gives me the flexibility, but stays in the business and be with the kids. So
All right, so you do that a while, and where does the like how does the entrepreneurial itch catch you? Because it doesn't seem like you'd ever really there doesn't seem to be a point. Like what happens that gets you to that point where you're like, I want to start something from nothing?
So I have actually um, always wanted to be doing something, even when I was with my husband before I go to Hong Kong. And a funny story was before I moved to Asia, and Josh and I were just like, all right, you will always be the corporate guys. Be in a banking, you'll be very successful. I could try different things. I think since we started dating, sorry about all the noise. Since we started dating, it's always been fine. Uh, you go, hold on. You go, um, you go and pursue something different and always have that support. So when I was in Hong Kong, I somehow say, well, this is my time. Like I can try something different. I mean, like the capital of entrepreneurs, right? And before I left, that was in '96. There was a lot of like catalog. Remember, everything was catalog business, and I
Yes.
was like, yeah, I think I can do a baby catalog. Like bring it to Asia, catalog business. So I take on a weekend, I studied like Adobe in like FIT, which
Hmm.
is, you know, I just thought, I can do this. I can just find a supplier. I'll do this on my spare time. So to a point where I managed to convince JP Morgan that for the first 6 months when I get there, I'm just going to do part time to settle down.
Hmm.
And in that 6 months, I actually work in Kowloon and found a supplier and worked with the designer. And then in the afternoon, I went back to JP Morgan at work. And nobody really knew that. Well, they kind of knew that I was on a 6 months getting,
Hmm.
part time, but I was like trying to find a business. I did find a supplier, a designer who I worked really well, and she was like trying to sell her business. So in that, like at towards the end, she's like, Rowena, why don't you just buy my business? And that's when I like started thinking, I'm like, yeah, do I really want to do this? Are we gonna stay in Hong Kong full time? It's like all that. I was still young. I have no kids yet, and so I ended up didn't do it. I went back to JP Morgan. So yeah, but it's always in the back of my. That was like my first, like I would say, experience in maybe doing something on my
And that
own.
always stayed with you?
That idea of being an entrepreneur always stayed with me. Just
Okay.
never have the opportunity.
So what happened that gave you the opportunity? What was the aha moment?
Um, the ultimate moment was a few actually. And I have to tell you this backstory of this.
Please.
It's I was in Thailand, and actually the funny thing. Are you a fan of White Lotus?
Yeah, I've watched the White Lotus.
Have
Yeah.
you watched the latest one in
I
Thailand?
haven't, no.
Okay, anyway, so that was the hotel we were staying. Did a cooking class there at Koh Samui Four Seasons, and my kids at that point 9 and 12 was have no idea how to even dice an onion, and me having worked in finance, went to culinary school. That's another story because I love cooking. I went to culinary school for like part time on Saturday Sunday for almost a year, and then and I'm like, wait, I grew up cooking because my mom cooked with us every Sunday. We sit down, we cook, it's lunch. And yet with my own kids, they have no idea how to dice an onion. They are going to be in middle school, and I was thinking, And I just finished reading a book about failure and why it's important for kids to fail. Can't remember the exact name of the book. And I'm like, looking at my kids, they have no idea how to feed themselves. They love to travel. They can eat well, but it's a life skill. We need to teach. We need to like get them to cut themselves and so they won't cut again. And so I at that trip was thinking, well, there is definitely something here that I can do where I can teach culinary, teach culture, um, and maybe make it like a meal kit. So, and at that point, meal kit was big, and I thought, maybe can be a meal kit, and I can work with the farmers market in Union Square, and bring the fresh ingredients and use that as a platform to teach and um, cultural learning, including the food. So that was how Eat2Explore's idea started. And then I told my husband, he's like, I think this is awesome. You should do it. And I'm like, are you going to be okay if I take a sabbatical to like, he's like, yes, do it. So
And
I
this
came
is
back.
around the time, and this is around the time where like services like Blue Apron
Yep.
and all the others were starting to launch.
2016.
Yeah. And that's the
Yeah.
beginning of those meal services, right?
Yep. Yep. And
Okay.
it was very, very, it was booming. It was
Hmm.
booming. And yet I tried most of them and they're like not to my satisfaction. They're all subpar recipes, they're all subpar ingredients. And I thought, that's an opportunity here to be better.
But your but
Um,
your but your idea wasn't centered around quick meal prep or meal plans, right? Your idea is completely different than
Well,
what.
that was right now it is, but that was when I first started in
Okay,
2017. It was very similar to Meal Kit. It was
got it.
very similar to you get the vegetables, you get the meat, but then also country specific. Like you do a Mexico month and then you do a France and a UK month. So it still evolve around country, but then it comes with everything.
So how
So
look, just out of you okay, so you leave your job
yep,
and you put your own money up
yep,
and you come up with the idea.
yep,
And what's the first step? Do you launch a website and try to make sales? Do you build the kit and build an operation? Do you cook with your kids?
yeah.
Like, what do you do?
So,
Give me the
so
first
what I,
six
yeah,
months
yeah,
in business.
sure. The first 6 months. So I came back. I say I'm going to take a sabbatical for 6 months. So then my partners are like, go try it. If not, you always have a partnership here. You can come back to. So what I did then was I then first find a name. I said, this is what I want to do. I want to find a name. And then I'm French culinary trained. My friend who's in my town who's also French culinary. So I managed to like get her involved. I'm like, why don't we do this together? You be my partner. We'll start getting the recipes, the photos, just like Milk It. You get the recipe cards, and then I can start sourcing and let's, get the bag, the logo, the name registered, and then at that point, Shopify is not a thing. There's no like website. Shopify not that famous,
Yeah.
and you can do subscription. So I ended up through an investment of ours, which is an e-commerce, and the founder, I spoke to the founder who turned out to be a fraud. But in any case, young guy who is like, e-commerce friendly, know what to do, introduced me to his developer in India. So we have a website done kind of like
Hmm.
India style, right? Like not beautiful, but you
Yeah.
can, place your order. We sort of like leverage Blue Apron and HelloFresh website and do similar style kind of thing. And yeah, with that, then I have a kitchen in the Bronx that we go and get all the ingredients and put it together
Hmm.
and pack it. And I beta test it with friends and families, and then just kind of start. I never, one thing about me is when I have the idea I want to do, I do it. I don't hesitate.
Yep.
And I said, you got to try it, and then I just keep learning.
And it's
And there
just you at
is,
this point, right? You're the only employee, or do you
I'm
have
the
the partner?
only I know I'm the only one. I do have a chef partner that curate with
Yeah.
me, and we'll meet. We meet literally every week. we do the recipes, we do the cooking, the photos, and so all the photos are like done in my kitchen. And then I
It's
have
hard
a
to photograph.
friend.
It's hard to photograph food. People don't understand, but food is like
Yeah, and I have a friend who's a photographer,
a lot of
and
food
so
that they
she,
photograph is fake. It's actually not
yes, I
food.
know.
It's all it's
It's
like
all stock photo.
yeah, it's
It's all stock
crazy.
photo. Yeah,
So
so
what were sales like the first year?
uh, I would say 30,000 max when I
So
first, well,
bare
so I wasn't even first year. I think I did like 8 months and
okay,
I got burned out. I'm like, this is not, I'm spending so much. I'm not getting any sales and this is not sustainable.
okay,
Like I
all right,
literally said, I'm tired of going and waking up at 4 in the morning, go to the Bronx,
yeah.
right, once a week to get all this packed with a helper. It just doesn't make sense. And all these people have so much funding, and fresh ingredients are super hard. So then I put myself out in at NYU. I went to Stern for my business school, and NYU has an entrepreneurial challenge. So I said, you know what, I'm just gonna put myself out there, have people criticize me. And in the fall, I joined and the entrepreneur challenge, and I actually for the next 3 months just got all the people to talk to and do a deep research. I came through to semi-finalists for that competition, but never did make it, obviously. But I that's when I learned to like pivot to our current model.
But you basically stopped the company the way it was and said, this doesn't
Right,
work. No,
right,
thank you. I'm out.
right,
And then so you go
right.
to NYU, you get into this competition, and
Yeah,
that's where you learn. I mean, was it, what do you think taught you? Was it the other entrepreneurs and the conversations that you were having, and you just
yeah,
got your mind around the fact that maybe you weren't right and you needed to just move in a different direction?
yeah. Yeah. Well, one other thing, Jay, I mentioned this in other podcasts. I think the problem with a lot of founders, you are founders rub each other off, right? Like if you have somebody who's a founder, and founders are great mentor. They love to
Hmm.
share. But remember, I came from the corporate world. All my friends are corporate. Until today, all my closest friends are still corporates. They are like, running the banks and they are like running big Fortune 500 companies. They are lawyers. They are, right? And so I have nobody that actually knows what I'm talking about,
It's
right? So
so
I have
different.
right? It's so different. And
Yeah.
so I have to like figure this out. Thank God I'm in New York City where I just joined that. Then I met lots of people. And then from there I meet more people. And then I got to Hampton. But
Yeah.
it's just like that, right? Like you are surrounded by people who are kind of similar to you.
Yeah.
So
What do you find the biggest, like, what, I know I say it's so different. Like, what do you think the biggest difference between a corporate job and being an entrepreneur and like being friends in that world? Like, what's your experience showed you the sort of biggest differences?
I think the biggest difference is the risk taking part.
Hmm.
I think entrepreneurs are just natural risk takers. You have to be, right? You have to be because you're like all in or nothing at all. And half
Ugh.
the time, sometimes, a lot of times,
Back,
is
back to
nothing
the
at all.
back to the bookie days.
Right, right. And I actually see that in my kids. I can totally see and like I talk about my son a lot. My Justin is a risk taker. And there are finance people who are risk takers, like the hedge fund managers. They are. They left the corporate world. They ended up running money, and either you are very successful or you're not. And a lot of people, you always see the successful one. There's so many just not successful.
Hmm.
So it's like running a business. So I don't know. I think my biggest thing I take away is uh, entrepreneurs are just like chameleon. They just keep changing and changing. They take the risk, they move, they try again, and it's just like you gotta keep evolving and figure out your stripes.
Yeah, I love that. You know, obviously the risk is a big piece of it, but the other, you know, I think it comes down to self-belief. I've I've never really
That
met
is true.
I've never met an entrepreneur who was wishy-washy in whether or not they believed in themselves. Every entrepreneur that I've known, whether they've been successful or not been successful, has been a little bit delusional as to what their own
Yeah,
skills and what their own abilities are. And once they've gotten an idea, have been able to drive through to the best of their capability to execute against that idea. Again, not everybody's successful, but
right.
they're just action takers and they have a deep level of self conviction and belief on their ideas and
That's
themselves. And, I've always, for me, it came from, in a lot of ways, thing you're telling me about yourself, we're just so shaped by our parents, Rowena. Right? Like we try not to be, but we really are. Like your finance
I love
background
that you
comes
think
from
about
your
how
mom.
you're shipping your kids, right? Aren't you thinking about how you're shipping your kids? I
I think
always
about
do.
I think about it all the time. I think about it
Right.
all the time. I think about it with my sobriety. I think about it with
Yeah.
my picking myself up off the mat when things haven't gone well for me and my kids
Right.
seeing like how I manage this business through COVID and my daily efforts during that period of time because they were, 5 years ago, my kids were 19, uh, 16 and
Right.
like 13. And like they watched me during COVID, like
Right.
watched me work. And it was like so yeah, I think about that all the time and breaking patterns and growing patterns and like how to because they're gonna be an amalgamation of you and your husband. It's just what it is.
Right. Right. True.
I sort of love that, but you can also create some really screwed up kids if
Yeah. Yeah.
if your head's not on straight.
It's
So all right,
true. It is true. It's true.
so you get out of all right, so you get out of the New York University think tank
Entrepreneur. Yep.
startup entrepreneurial world. By the way, any really successful companies you remember that you were part of
None
that
of
came from
them.
there?
Isn't that crazy? Well, there are a few. There are a few, but also a few failures. One that I totally remember was that tattoo that can disappear. Now they're having a lawsuit because it didn't disappear; it become permanent. And there were some others. There are a few interesting ones like shopping. Now it's a lot of tech where. So I'm very involved now. So I'm one of the judges. Like I review. I went back and donate my time. I review all this applicants.
So take me through Eat2Explore. You get out of this competition and you immediately pivot the business. Take me
Yeah,
through where the business was at that point and where it is today. Give me the
yeah. So the timeline. So that's 2018 when I completed NYU. I basically said let's pivot and then let's do um no fresh ingredients because everyone that I talked to, all the customers, love my spices, love the recipes that is simple, love the flavor, love to have more things to learn about the country, right? And so I took that and I recreate what it is now, where each box is a country. We continually enhance our educational, experiential uh, product or materials within the box. And it's just 3 recipes with spices. So everything is non perishable, super easy to make. We give you the hard to find ingredients and spices or sometimes grains, and you just buy your own chicken or your vegetable. We have vegan option, gluten free. Just make it adaptable. And we constantly adding more material. Now we have a membership portal where you go into the portal, you can get blogs about celebration, activity sheets. We have movie suggestions, Spotify playlists to listen to the music while you cook. We have movie suggestions and books so that if you want to do like a ladies' night, which we just expanded to adults as well. So, and then our material will allow you to learn geography, history, language, music, everything about the country. So when we relaunched in October 2018, this is what we have. And I did I then in October or August, July, I hired a digital marketer to help me do ads on Facebook.
Uh-huh.
I hired a content manager to create contents for Instagram, find micro influencers, and this is all in late 2018. I'm already late in the game, but at that point, Meta is getting bigger, and Instagram, Google search. Arthur, who I hired to be my digital marketer, today is my advisor. He's been with me since we started. He and his wife are both our advisors. Um, and um, and in 2019, I said that's my full year. So we made around 100,000 that year.
Uh-huh.
It's our first year, and uh, also that year we were found and discovered by homeschoolers, and I didn't even think about homeschoolers that will use our box, and there's a big world out there in the United States
Yeah.
that do not go to public school. They are homeschool,
Yeah. And
right?
getting bigger every day.
And getting bigger every day. And so they found us. They love our product because they are very much hands-on learning, and culinary art and cooking. It's a way they do learn about that, and then incorporating the geography, the music, the language, and everything. They love it. They love our product. So we then was told by some California, especially California was like one of the first one. California parents started to tell me about their charter schools that get funding from states, and told us to apply. And so we started with California first, where we applied to the charter schools. They get us approved, and then students can use funds and buy our boxes. So I'm like, wow, that's a interesting role. Today, over 50% of our revenue comes from schools from all
Oh,
the
wow.
states. We are approved for every state that have funding that we qualify for. So, um, and even autistic kids. Like we have so many families that came to us and say, "Thank you, my kids cannot travel. They are either disabled or they are autistic, and you have allowed them to, like this family." She was so thankful. She's like, "You allow my kids to touch chicken for the first time." She every year so excited, every month so excited to get your box in the mailbox. We send our boxes to this family in Poland who has an autistic kid. The son actually wait by the mailbox every month, and the mother has to email us every month and say, "Do not forget to send to Poland. Like, just make sure you send to Poland." And so it's just so rewarding to see that people use it. They make meals. They love it. They travel. They learn. And so so 2019 was like kind of we figured out where, and then COVID hit.
Yeah. Well, but COVID, and you would think COVID would have accelerated this business, did it?
Yeah, you did. You did. So going back to my gambling analogy, I told my husband, I'm like, okay, everybody needs us. Everyone's homeschooling. Everyone's at home. They need to cook. They're not going restaurants.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's spend more money on the ads. Let's spend. And I told Arthur, our digital marketer, I said, I'm ready to spend. Just tell me
Yeah.
how we can put our name out there. And so we did. And at that point, because earlier on, it was cheap because everybody dropped off. Like nobody wants to advertise.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
we
yeah.
were like one of the few. So we ended up, but then I can't spend as much as I want to because there's a limit. I never spend that much. So it was like a slow ramp up. And I also found a really good PR who represent all like the famous chefs, but of course everything dried up, and they like, thank God I'll give you whatever rate you're willing to do. So I negotiated a very good rate with this PR firm that took us on and got us in a lot of magazines. And so 2020, 21 was one of our definite, 21 was our best year. Um, and then it was kind of like this throughout. And then yeah, you know, yeah. So that's how it started.
And where's the business today?
Um, we're still not as big as we should be. And there are two reasons.
Find me an entrepreneur who says they're as big as they should be.
Exactly, that's true. We
It's
have
so
been,
hard. Isn't it hard emotionally to manage like things like that though? I mean, like, I've got a pretty big business. I mean, multi-billion dollar business. I haven't not
but,
done right. But like, I'll have a conversation with somebody who's got a bigger business than me, and the next thing you know, I'm like, in my head, I'm like, well, I'm not big enough.
but,
Like,
but.
what the like,
I know. That's
get
how
out.
it is, right? You're never happy, but I'm happy. Like I could spend. So look at this. I'm still self-funding this, right?
Mm-hmm.
I could have gone to a VC and I could have gotten $10 million, say, right? And then this business could be a 20 million or more revenue because of all the money I have and the money I dump into marketing
Yeah, it's
and
a terrible life,
expansion.
but that's a terrible lifestyle.
It's a terrible lifestyle. First of all, you're always going to be answering to
Yeah.
an investor,
You
and
need
you're giving away
if you
you're
get 10
giving away
million,
your sweat equity.
if you get 10 million, you need to be 50, 60, 70, 80 million. You need to get it to the point where you don't, have to deal with anything but the investors at that point.
No,
You can't be 10 million to be 20 million. You can't get 10
true,
to be
true,
20.
true, 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 true,
It's not
true.
enough. They want more of a
So I
return.
don't
It
think the
sucks.
VC will want. So no VC will want to give you money
Mm-hmm.
unless you can be the 50 to 100 million,
Yeah, that's what I'm
right?
saying. You can't beat 10
Right.
million to get 20 million. They don't care.
They don't.
The
Right. Right.
problem with getting money from a VC is the pressure is so instant. Like when you're
Right.
talking about, like, I've somewhat ramped on, I wish I was bigger, but I've done it at a pace.
Right.
You've done it at a pace. Um, you know, Sometimes if you don't have, here's the challenge with VC money. Your timing and their timing might be off. Their timing starts from the minute they give you their money.
Right.
Your timing is subject to all sorts of different factors.
Right.
Those factors could
Right.
include things like economic downturns
Right.
or unbeknownst tariffs that are right. And you're pressing the gas, and
Right.
you shouldn't be pressing the gas, but you're doing it
Right.
because you feel this
You
pressure to
have
see.
to. Right. Right.
Yes. And it's not,
Yes, you have to. Right.
no good. It doesn't
It's
work.
not good. It's not good. Especially the way I see it is I'm still learning. I'm constantly learning. And if I take someone's money, I have to big bet on mistakes that I might be making.
Mhm.
And I have been making a lot of mistakes. Right. And 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 it has been on my dime and I will grow it to be profitable with lessons I learned. I don't know. It's like it's also it sucks up so much time of yours and you're giving away equity that it's not worth it for me personally. And so
It's funny
when
to hear you talk like that because you were on the other side of that for so long.
I have, and I see how it is. First of all, as an investor, you need to see like a big growth, right? Like potentially 10 times, 20 times, and you got to see a projection. And you and I know half the time most of these projections are wrong. They're never right. Like my
Half.
3-year projection is night, always. And then you get this money, and if you're really small, you literally have to give away a lot of equity,
Yeah.
right? And then you at just start at the beginning, you're already giving away a lot of equity, and then you're working for someone else.
The world
So
is the world is littered with entrepreneurs who've sold their businesses for $100 million and made a million.
right, or nothing, or
Yeah,
nothing.
that's or nothing. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm saying in the context
and
of
you
this
invested
conversation, a
so
million is
much
nothing.
energy and your spirit
Yeah,
and everything, your soul, and then yet you got nothing to show for. And
yeah,
yeah, you can say, yeah, I learned from it. I would start another one. Like, I just for me, I'm not. First of all, I'm old enough to start another one. I just love what I'm doing, and so it's like, is it worth it? No. And
yeah,
then you're gonna run out of money, and then you're gonna be spending another how many hours and days raising more money
yeah.
and worry about it. So
Rowena Scherer, she's the founder of Eat2Explore. It's an awesome service. You should check it out online. Where can folks find you?
Eat2Ex is EAT, the number 2, EXPLORE.com. Eat2Explore, food and cultural experiential cooking kit. We have expanded to adults, so now you can get our boxes and have a date night, making a meal, listening to music. Just like Cinco de Mayo, you can get our Mexico box. Instead of going out to restaurants, you make it at home. Have your playlist while you listen and then watch a movie. And we have cocktail. I curated all this cocktail with a mixology who's actually head of beverage at the ICE Institute of Culinary Americas. So fun way to spend time with your other halves or social friends.
I love it. I'm into a new show on TV now called Food America that Built America. Have you seen it?
No.
Oh, it's so good.
Okay.
Yesterday I watched Arby. It was about fast food in the late mid 60s and its growth in the United States. And they told the
I need to
story
see that.
of, yeah, you do, because they told the story of Glenn Bell and the Raffle Brothers. The Raffle Brothers started Arby's and Glenn Bell started Taco Bell. And, Glenn Bell was 8 to 10 years into his journey, had an unsuccessful partnership, left 2 or 3 years out of the industry. His initial Taco Bell restaurant was about to, was doing well, but he not doing well. And then he expanded too fast and almost went bankrupt. And Arby's was 80 stores and went bankrupt. And it was just fascinating to see the history of some of the businesses that we now know to be incredibly iconic. I mean, Apple is a great story with respect to they went, bank. It's like, so you think as entrepreneurs, it's like up and to the right, and it's just not that at all. So, I love knowing you. You're an awesome spirit. Rowena, you've got this like international story that is so different than mine. And like, I love it. That's why when you say, like, when we go back to the start, you grew up in a fishing town in Malaysia, like, what? I grew up in the suburbs of Philly, but yet we bond over this shared experience that you and I are having, which is running a business that has grown to a certain level, but it's not iconic in the world yet, right? I mean, we're not 4imprint, we're not Custom Ink, so to speak, right? And you're not Blue Apron or whoever in that space, HelloFresh or whoever. But we both do something just a little bit different than those companies, and there's room for us to continue to grow.
One thing I love about America, and I always say that I couldn't have done this anywhere else. America is such a great country where anything is possible. It truly is. Like, you just want to have a vision, a really ability, like, if you're healthy, your ability to work, and there are ways. It is such a great country.
I love it. I love it. Rowena, thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for listening to JaySapChats. I hope you leave a little bit better than you came. And here's wishing you a beautiful week.